the echo of the last journey. To speak of the last incarnation is not to speak of an end, but of a silent apex. It is the moment when the soul, after crossing wars, loves, losses, and rebirths, begins to realize there is nothing left to conquer in this plane. Some walk through life as if everything were new. The first love, the first pain, the first triumph. Others, however, live like ancient travelers who already know every curve of the road, as if they had walked through every desert on earth, and now they move not in search, but in farewell. The soul that approaches its last incarnation carries a different vibration. It is not haste. It is not fear. It is a silent detachment, a strange serenity, like someone watching a play already knowing its ending. It is the paradox of being alive and, at the same time, feeling no longer bound to the rules of this human game. And then the question arises, is this just another chapter, or is it the epilogue? How can one recognize if the soul has reached the limit of the human cycle? For the ancient Egyptians, this moment was called the final call. It was believed that the soul, in its last passage through earth, began to express itself in mysterious ways, through repetitive dreams, improbable encounters, or a strange sense of déjà vu that grew insistent. For the initiates, this call was not just any intuition. It was like a sound without a voice, an echo vibrating in the depths of being, reminding that the crossing was about to be completed. And what if these signs were not written only in ancient books or hidden among the stars, but within you, waiting to be recognized? The cosmic weariness. The first sign of the last incarnation cannot be explained in words, only felt in the depths. It is a weariness that does not come from the body or the mind. It is an exhaustion born from the soul. This is not the ordinary tiredness after a day of work, nor the emotional fatigue of a difficult season. It is as if every fiber of being whispered, "I have walked too far." It is the sense of having already tasted all the pains and all the beauties the world could offer, of having touched every extreme, from the brightest joy to the darkest suffering. This state carries a silent melancholy. One looks at celebrations, at achievements, at human desires, and realizes none of it attracts as it once did. There is a longing with no address, a thirst that finds no water in this world. And yet, paradoxically, it is not depression. It is a premonition, a veiled calling. The heart knows this weariness is not a sign of giving up, but a foretelling of liberation. Spiritual masters once recommended a simple ritual to recognize this vibration. Close your eyes for 1 minute in complete silence and observe what arises in the emptiness. If the silence feels like escape, the soul still seeks experiences. But if the silence feels like return, if the sensation is of being at home even with closed eyes, this may be the echo of a soul that has already walked every road. This exercise requires no altar, no words, only presence. It is in this space that the weary soul reveals whether it still wishes to keep learning here, or if it longs to return. And what if this profound fatigue, so often mistaken for discouragement, were in truth the secret sign that the soul is nearing its final liberation? The gaze beyond the veil. The second sign of the last incarnation is the persistent feeling of not fully belonging to earth. It is not a refusal of life, but a different way of seeing it. The person lives through events, but always as one observing from the outside. Like a traveler who never completely disembarks. It is like being at a celebration and feeling the music does not reach you. People laugh, dance, rejoice, yet inside you there is a silence that contemplates it all with strangeness. This non-belonging runs deep, work, ambitions, social games, none of it seems able to hold the soul that has already touched other horizons. Ancient traditions explain this through symbols. The Eye of Horus in Egypt was more than protection. It represented the vision that sees beyond time, beyond illusion. To see the world as an observer is to carry this awakened gaze. It is to realize that the stage of life is fascinating, yet the true dwelling of the soul lies beyond the veil. This detachment can bring both peace and solitude. Peace, for not being imprisoned by illusions. Solitude, for knowing few share the same awareness. The initiates said that those in their last incarnation recognize simple signs. Feeling more spectator than actor in social settings, noticing they seek meaning where others seek distraction, realizing their gaze turns inward more often than outward. It is as if the world were a play seen many times before, and now the soul is only waiting for the curtains to close. But what happens when this distant gaze begins to manifest also in the body, revealing that even matter can no longer keep pace with the soul? The body that refuses. The third sign of the last incarnation does not appear only in the mind or the heart. It manifests in the body. It is as if matter itself begins to show it is no longer willing to sustain the human experience for much longer. Many report strange symptoms, illnesses with no medical explanation, sudden fatigue, abrupt shifts of energy. Sometimes it is an unexpected fragility, other times, a resistance to routines that once felt normal. It is not punishment, but language. The body becomes the messenger of the soul. The analogy is simple. Imagine a guest who has lived for years in a rented house. Over time, they realize they no longer belong there. The furniture creaks, the walls give way, the roof begins to drip. It is not just wear and tear, it is a warning. It is time to leave. So it is with the soul in its last incarnation. The body begins to send signs that it does not wish to remain indefinitely. This conflict may be frightening, but it carries a deeper meaning. It is as if biology were preparing to release consciousness, helping the soul loosen its final attachments. There is a simple practice the ancients recommended to understand this dialogue between body and soul. Place your hand over your heart, close your eyes, and silently ask, "Do you still wish to remain?" The answer does not come in words, but in sensations. A warmth, a pressure, an emptiness, a relief. It is a brief gesture, yet it can reveal whether the body still feels like home, or whether it has already become only a passage. This small ritual helps transform symptoms into messages and discomforts into signs of transition. And what if all these physical signals were not illnesses to be feared, but coded messages from the soul, preparing it for the call of the invisible? The call of the invisible. There comes a moment when the soul, weary of the visible, begins to be irresistibly drawn to the invisible. It is not ordinary curiosity, nor spiritual fashion. It is a deep thirst, as if something forgotten were calling it back. This is another sign of the last incarnation, a sudden openness to symbols, ancient teachings, mysterious languages that feel familiar even without study. Suddenly, dreams repeat with scenes that do not belong to this life. Unknown landscapes appear in the mind with colors so vivid they feel like memories. And along with them, grows the sense that part of you has already been in worlds beyond this one. The sages said that the soul, in its farewell to earth, begins to hear its true voice. It is as if the veil between planes became thinner, allowing messages, intuitions, even memories to pass through with ease. This call does not ask for explanation. It asks for listening. Among the most sacred symbols for this stage is the closed lotus. In Eastern tradition, the lotus represents the soul. When still learning, it opens and closes at the rhythm of life. But as it approaches the last incarnation, the lotus remains closed. Not from resistance, but from preparation. It holds within itself the final revelation, the essence that will bloom only upon returning to the infinite. To recognize yourself in this call is to accept that the attraction to the invisible is not an escape from reality, but an invitation to remember who you have always been. And what happens when the soul finally recognizes its own reflection in this silent call? The recognition of the mirror. Another striking sign of the last incarnation is the reunion. It is not about meeting new people, but about recognizing them. It is that instant when a single glance awakens in you the sense of having been with that soul for centuries. Encounters that do not feel new, but like returns. Those in their final passage through Earth experience this phenomenon more often. Faces become mirrors of eternity. Friends, partners, even strangers carry in their eyes the memory of stories that do not belong only to this life. It is not imagination. It is soul memory. As if time collapsed for a few seconds, revealing that what we call the present is, in truth, the reunion of ancient chapters. These encounters bring a mixture of emotion and silence. Joy, because there is an immediate recognition, and melancholy, because somewhere in the soul you know, these reunions may be nothing more than invitations to the final farewell. There is a simple practice to feel this eternity in another. Look into the eyes of someone you trust for 30 seconds, without words, only presence. In that silence, the soul reveals itself. Many report feeling vertigo, as if crossing centuries in a single instant. Others describe unexpected tears, not of sorrow, but of memory. It is in this gesture, so simple that one perceives how much eternity can fit inside a human gaze. And what if all these reunions, charged with emotion, were not mere chance, but secret invitations to the last farewell? The disidentification. When the soul nears its last incarnation, something begins to dissolve quietly. The need to identify with human roles, titles, status, material achievements. All that once seemed vital loses its shine. It is not disinterest in life, but a deep recognition that no label can imprison the infinite. The person begins to live lightly in the face of what once felt heavy. Vanity slips away, urgency is released, the need to prove anything to anyone disappears. It is as if the stage of existence, once so imposing, revealed its fragile curtains. The actor, weary of so many characters, slowly removes the mask. And the sigh that follows is not defeat, but relief. In this process, emptiness appears. But it is a fertile emptiness. The soul understands it is not what it possesses, nor what it has achieved, but only the consciousness that observes, eternal and silent. This disidentification may seem strange to those who witness it from the outside. But for the one who lives it, it is liberation. The heart no longer clings to roles, to comparisons, to competitions. It lets go and breathes. One symbol the ancients used for this stage was the fallen mask. In rites of passage, masks were removed and left on the ground as a sign that the soul no longer needed human roles. To practice this gesture symbolically can be simple. Write on a sheet of paper all the labels you carry: child, professional, strong, responsible. And then burn or tear the paper in silence, as one who returns to the world what is not eternal. This small ritual does not destroy the roles. It only reminds us that they are transient. But what does the soul do when it finally realizes nothing holds it anymore? What happens in the face of the emptiness that remains? The final test. Before the ultimate liberation, the soul faces what the ancients called the final test. It is not an external challenge, not a battle against the world. It is always something intimate, profound, secret. This test may manifest in different ways. For some, it appears as an intense attachment, something that still binds the heart to the world. For others, it arises in the form of an unhealed wound that demands forgiveness. And for some, it takes the shape of the hardest calling, unconditional love, the practice of loving without expecting anything in return. The final test is never random. It touches precisely the most sensitive point of the soul, that place where resistance still remains. It is as if the universe whispered, "You are ready, but before you depart, look directly at what still holds you here." Often, this test comes disguised as pain. A sudden loss, an intense relationship, an unexpected separation. The soul, however, recognizes it is not punishment, but purification. It is the last knot that must be untied before the crossing. The Egyptians represented this moment with the golden key. It was not just a ritual object, but a symbol of passage, the opening of the last door. In the temples, it was believed that only those who carried the necessary lightness in their hearts could cross with the invisible key. A symbolic gesture can help perceive this stage. Close your eyes and imagine a door before you. In your right hand, visualize a golden key. Then ask in silence, "What still keeps me from crossing?" Often, the answer comes as a memory, an emotion, a name, an image. And in that recognition, liberation begins. Could it be that you already stand before this door, holding the key in your hands without even realizing it? The memory of the infinite. When the soul passes through the final test, something extraordinary happens. Memories begin to return. They are not linear recollections with dates and names. They are fragments, sensations, echoes of entire lives woven together into a mosaic. It is as if every pain, every joy, every rebirth became part of a single luminous tapestry. The soul no longer distinguishes past, present, and future. All merges into one circle. Many describe this phase as a series of sudden visions, a fragrance that awakens memories of another life, a place unknown that stirs deep emotion as if it were a forgotten home, a stranger's face that, in silence, provokes tears of recognition. These memories do not come to imprison, but to integrate. They remind the soul that every fragment was essential to compose the whole. And now, at the end of the cycle, there is no more guilt, no more regret. Everything reveals itself as learning. It is here that the symbol of the golden circle arises. It represents the perfect closing. All cycles converge, and the soul understands that nothing was in vain. A powerful practice to feel this memory is the meditation of the circle. Close your eyes and imagine yourself at the center of a great golden circle. At each point of the circle, visualize a life, an experience, a face once lived. Allow them all to merge until no separation remains between them. This practice does not seek to recall details, but to feel unity. The soul is not each life in isolation. It is the entire circle. And when the circle finally closes, what happens then? What remains for the soul that is no longer meant to return? The return home. The last incarnation is not about escape, nor about punishment. It is about celebration. It is when the soul, after countless turns on the wheel of life, finally understands that Earth has fulfilled its role as a school. At this stage, a serenity arises that cannot be explained. The fear of death disappears because consciousness realizes there is no end. The body may say farewell, but the soul returns to what it never left, the home of the infinite. Spiritual traditions describe this moment in different ways, but all converge on a common image, the return home. Not a house built of bricks, but a state of being. It is the return to the origin, the space where there is no separation, where there is no loss, where every fragment returns to the whole. The soul, upon completing its last incarnation, carries no titles, no possessions, no linear memories. It carries only expanded consciousness, the wisdom of having experienced everything and, at last, having been freed from it all. This return is not a farewell, but a reunion. And perhaps that is why so many souls, in their final moments of life, describe seeing lights, doors, loved ones, symbols of a home that has always existed beyond the veil. If you feel you have reached the end, do not fear. The soul does not disappear. It returns to the home it never left. Each life was only a chapter, and now you hold the entire book in your hands. Freedom is not forgetting who you were, but realizing you were always greater than all the stories. The cycle closes, and you return not as one who loses, but as one who finally remembers.